So I've asked these guys if they would just come up and just for a couple of minutes share with you some things about who they are and their involvement. All along we have said that we're trying to get the stories of Sat Talks in order to show you that there are some folks out there doing some things, that we're trying to figure this stuff out, and there are points of light everywhere. And that ultimately what we want to do is we want to work with churches and communities to see if we can help accelerate the learning curve so that more and more congregations could be involved in what we call Missions 3.0. And so Sat Talks leads us to being able to share in the Missions 3.0 workshop, in which Jonathan did a great job of talking about relief and betterment and development and the 4 domains and the 4 practices and all that sort of stuff. And what we're finding is that as we break this down in those kind of fundamental ways with congregations, people start to get this sense of, okay, I get it. I see what I'm dealing with. And just the frameworks create a little less anxiety. And then our peer learning communities are a time where we work with them on these 4 practices and integrating and just beginning the long work of getting all of these things to work together in a different way that could produce not the helping that hurts, but beyond that. So, and both of these guys represent some folks that we have worked with in our Missions 3.0 workshop and our peer learning community. So I've asked them to kind of come, and I'm going to ask them a couple questions, just have them tell you a little bit about their experience with Missions 3.0. This is Mike Pearce. He is the missions pastor at First Baptist Church in Huntsville, Alabama.
So can I share as part of my story?
Sure.
Well, hello, my name is Mike, and your response is,
Hello, Mike.
And I'm an addict. And I look back over my life, it started very early. It was my mother's fault. She taught me to have a servant's heart. And I became addicted. And I started moving the trash bins of my elderly neighbors out to the street and then come back after school and put them back. And we did all kinds of projects in the community and lots of things. And you flash forward a little bit, a lot, and I'm a minister of missions or a missions pastor in Huntsville. And I moved from being an addict to being a pusher. and you might even say I was a mission PIMP. I don't think I can say that word here, can I?
Well, you probably could.
And I think that's the first time those 2 words have ever been put together. And so I helped lead my church and the community into serving the city. It was called Serving the City as One. And so 2 years ago, we had 3,000 people out serving in 69 different churches, out in the community with 256 projects, and everybody was happy. Everybody was having a great time. We were at schools painting the walls, doing landscaping, we were doing block parties, we were doing everything you can think of as a project. Well, I didn't settle for that. I went to the schools and started pushing at schools. So last year, April 1st, Alabama A&M students, it's a predominantly African-American school, they wanted to serve. And I said, sure, I'll help you do that. And so the evil staff of Alabama A&M said, we're going to require the freshmen to be there for a grade. I said, that's great. We can get them involved. Well, it turned out to be, as we enlisted Christian leaders to be with these groups of 10 to 12 students, so it's still a Christian-focused ministry, we had 1,300 students and faculty show up. And so we put them out there and we pushed them. And they are growing servant hearts, and that was our hope, to do that. And then flash back to February, and Tom Basford comes to town and with a Cornerstone conference. And you know, I had read this book. Some guy named Bob had written a book, and he said this stuff I'm doing is toxic. Another guy says it hurts, you know, and I put that on the shelf along with the other books that I never look at again. And I thought, man, that can't be right. And so it took me a long time to process. And then Tom comes to town and he says, this isn't right. What you're doing, you need to change that. And I felt like he stood me up in this middle of this 400 people and was pointing at me, even though he wasn't. Everybody in my church was gathered around the table. I felt like they were looking at me, blaming me for this. I said, I think I was doing what God told me to do. And so I called Tom. I said, Tom, you got to come back and help me. I'm a pusher. I'm addicted. I don't know what to do. And so he came back and led us in some parts of Missions 3.0, and I had him come back again, and I've tried to expose him to many people in my church and in the community, and I was trying to share this new approach for us, and we went through this Missions 3.0 workshop. It was wonderful, and we had people exposed to that. He came to my missions committee, and they argued with him, and they didn't believe what he said. And I said, yes, this is right. I believe it now. And so Tom was my sponsor, and he got me in this program of Missions 3.0. And I kept saying, Tom, okay, now what do we do now? And he says, well, you'll just gradually, we'll work on that. And so I started to tell some of my people, and they got mad at me. And they came to me and they said, what are you doing? I said, we're not going to have Serving the City as we know it next year. And they said, you got to. We want that. This is how our family, we're growing our children to be servants. And I said, well, we need to change this thing a little bit. And they said, no, you got to give us the good stuff. You got to give us that one and done stuff, and we'll be happy. And so we're really having a hard time. So I asked Tom, what do we do from here? And he says, well, you have to let God lead. And I said, I think I've already been letting God lead through all this, and I don't know if that was right or not. Maybe it was my fault. And so I'm an addict. And I'm a pusher, and I'm hopefully recovering. And I appreciate Tom and Missions 3.0. It has been an inspiration to me. It's changed my parameters, allowed me to see a new way of missions and service to the community and ways that are more sustainable and mature, and to do it so we don't hurt people or we addict people into that.
So, thanks, Doug. And a sense of humor that I didn't know you had as well. And so, and Mike, you're really early in the process. It's a large church. How large?
We average about 1,050 to 1,100 on Sunday.
And it's one of those anchor churches in the community. They've done a lot. They've got a lot of influence and that sort of stuff. You're over 60.
Yes.
And there is this sense inside of you that God's not done. There may be another iteration of what it means to be a mission pastor at your age.
I believe that's exactly right, and I can't quit now. I've got to continue, and don't know how that looks at this point, but we're willing to do this, and I love Don's enthusiasm. We can do this.
And your senior pastor, is he on board?
Absolutely. Travis is an amazing mission guy, was a missionary to Nigeria, and has a great missions heart, better than any pastor I've ever worked with.
And so just to tell you, the thing that I say when I go to communities and work with individual churches like this is, this is not something you can do. The best I'm going to be able to do in this weekend workshop with you is frame the conversation. If you think you're going to fix anything in a 6-hour workshop, you're kidding yourself. And so our experience is that for you to begin to change the ship on a large or a small church, it takes 3 to 5 years. And so if you're not willing to sign up to do some hard work over the next 3 to 5 years, then honestly, I can't help you. But if you're willing to commit yourself to that 3 to 5 year process, then we think that we can help you, and we can connect you to some other folks like the folks that you've been exposed to here, and that little by little you can begin to do the things that you need to do to begin to work things in ways that make more sense. And then our belief is that as we get more churches that are willing to do this, that they'll begin to grow in the examples of what they're doing. Lynette, you're a rock star to those of us that have been doing this. I mean, we've been having these conversations because you've been at this for a lot of years, and you are a demonstration that you can take an old dog and teach it new tricks. We can do that. But if we think that we're going to be able to do it overnight, we're kidding ourselves. However, the more churches that we get that can tell the stories that Lynette can tell, I believe the faster we'll begin to accelerate. We'll have more people doing helping that doesn't hurt, as opposed. So part then of what we do with churches from there is from the workshops, we go into what we call peer learning communities, in which 6 to 8 churches spend 2 years together in an action learning type of a thing where we facilitate a process that's all about setting action plans for 6 months in our 4 domains and the practices, and we say you've got to go back home and you've got to execute on those things. We come back and we debrief from those things, and it's what are we learning? Because every church is going to be different, every community is going to be different, but we cannot leave ourselves in this paralysis of analysis. We've got to get moving, and we just believe that as more of those peer learning communities happen, we'll begin to discover what it takes, what works, what doesn't work. And so Dick is from Hendersonville, North Carolina, and he's part of our first peer learning community of 6 United Methodist churches out of the Charlotte area. So Dick, tell us a little bit about yourself, your church, and why you guys got involved with the peer learning community.
My name is Dick.
Hi, Dick.
I'm a redemptively entangled full-time lay missions director. Mike and I are very similar. We go to the same barber, and I'm only about a year ahead of him. So our church has one of the core values is to be boldly missional. So I'm also involved in leadership council. So I asked them, where do you think we are on a scale from 1 to 5 on boldly missional? And they averaged a 4.1. My score was a 1. It's just like I didn't think they had the frame of reference. So I was looking for a way to move our scores up, or my score up, basically. So I found out about Mission 3.0 and went to a conference, and it was a one-day event. It was repeated the next day, so I drove back another 2 hours one way the next day and thought maybe I'd learn some more, plus it was confusing, so I was going to take better notes. And then I learned about the peer learning community. And so I got my church involved in that. We were fortunate to have 6 churches in our conference that were interested in doing this. And our missions director for the conference offered to pay half of the cost, so that was even better. So it's a 2-year commitment, twice a year, 2 days each time. And so we went to it. Each church approaches it a little bit differently. One church has all mission people involved in it. And they talked about one of their goals for the next 6 months was to get the senior pastor involved. Other churches has mixed of things. My church, we have the senior pastor, mission person, lay leader, a volunteer coordinator, and an outside partner who is an executive director of a domestic violence organization. So that's our team. We see ourselves as a visionary team for our missions group. And we're just exposing ourselves to the books, the experience, and we're looking forward to going back in 2 weeks because we're going to summarize what we did for the last 6 months. But then the exciting thing is we'll learn from the other 5 churches, 25 people, what they did. And we're also looking forward to, because we all consider ourselves high impact leaders and high capacity, able to do a lot of things, just like all of you. And for us to be in a room with 30 people like us talking about missions and how we can lead our church toward developing more sustainable solutions is just unbelievable to me. So that's my story.
And one of the interesting things that we're seeing, and we're really early in this, but we've got a couple of the different churches are being led by marketplace people. And we're seeing a difference in the way, in kind of the pace and those kinds of things when the work is being led by a marketplace person and when it's being led by somebody who's on paid staff. And I don't say that as a good thing or a bad thing. We're just noticing that there's some differences there. And we're trying to glean everything that we can from that. But one of the things that their church was doing that made me nervous, to be real honest with you, was they had a ministry partner as part of their team. And so the team, the 6 to 8 people, or the 4 to 6 people that come on your team every week, every time, go back home and execute. Well, they brought one of their key ministry partners, which is giving us the opportunity to push some things around how to restructure your partnerships as well, around honesty and asking some questions in such a way that it's not going to risk the funding stream going down the road. So we have high hopes that we're going to learn just a ton from the lessons these folks come back. And so when we meet with them for the second time, there'll be this debrief time of what did you do? You had this action plan that you shared with the group, you were gonna do it, and now that's done. What did you do? What did you work on? Why not? What did you learn? And then the group itself is gonna do some synthesis of what are the common things that they're finding between themselves. And we plan to write some stuff and just begin to share widely the lessons that we're learning through these different things right here. So I'm tickled that you folks made the trip from down south to be a part of SAT Talks this year, and hope that you're back next year. And
Yeah, I'll be back. I think the value of me being here today is for our group. You know, I'm exposed to Charity Tracker, which we have in our community, but I think it's like Mike would say, I think it's more of a gotcha versus a gotcha. And Polis Institute, we're working with groups in the community, working with people getting out of jail and how to break that cycle. We talked the last 3 months in our church about getting business leaders involved and how we do that. Talk about maybe having a mission and brews type thing to get them involved. And so the idea is just exposing them each time to a little bit at a time, and at the end, say, okay, where do you think you can fit in? So the ideas that Don gave were great. And obviously with Toxic Charity, those ideas. So it's been really amazing. And I've been texting back and forth to people back home about ideas I have. And so my head's just been spinning. So it's really worthwhile.
So thank you both for being here.